Roland Martin did a segment on a group of White Lives Matter supporters regarding a, you can call it a protest or a showing that they had down in Houston, Texas. Now, in my opinion, they were just doing this for publicity, which they got. Okay, they got some pretty heavy coverage down in the Houston, Texas area. It hasn't gone nationwide, and I doubt that it will. Now, I got a problem with this particular interview, and I'm just going to voice it. Roland's got the habit of interrupting his guests. Some cases it's appropriate, some cases it's not. This particular one, I don't agree with how he handled it for the most part. What he did was, when he gave the white guest a question, and then the guest attempted to answer it, and to answer it with facts as he knew it, Roland really didn't give him a chance to completely enunciate what he was talking about. Roland would jump in when he mentioned something that Roland could use as an attack point. Now, don't get me wrong, Roland was making valid points, but he seemed a little rambunctious, let us say, in cutting off the organizer, I guess, of this White Lives group. And I noticed that from the very beginning, and at a point in the interview, the guy basically told him, he said, you know, do you want to let me speak, or, you know, are you just going to, you know, just constantly over talk me? And the guy, in my opinion, was right. Roland should have kept the interview laser focused, allowed the person to make his point, made sure that he was, you know, that he made the guy aware, look, just stay on point, you know, so I can let you finish your comment, and then I can basically come back in and say whatever I have to say. He didn't do that. So, I mean, it was really not, in my opinion, a good interview. I'll say that. Then when he had the, I guess, president of the local chapter of the NAACP in Houston, when he came on, he allowed that gentleman to get his complete say, obviously because he was agreeing with a lot of the things that he said. Now again, Roland did make some valid points, but for him to basically not allow the man to speak his piece, you know, to me, I thought that was wrong. And again, these White Lives Matter protesters, they were out there seeking publicity, and they were actually, if you want to call it protesting against the wrong ones, because even though the NAACP, the national organization, does for the most part support a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement agenda, they don't support them, obviously, in all things. And the Houston chapter of the Black Lives Matter movement, they basically don't support the NAACP, you know, as funny as that sounds. And they have a Facebook site where they go on to say that they are not really supportive of the NAACP. Now, if the White Lives Matter group had any, I guess, major sophistication, if they had gone on the site, they would have seen that the Black Lives Matter movement was going to be at a opening of a giraffe cafe, and you can go on the site and see it for yourself. If they wanted to protest, and they definitely wanted to protest against the Black Lives Matter movement, they could have shown up at the Giraffe Cafe opening, and they could have directly addressed the Black Lives Matter people. But again, like I said, I think that they did this more for photo ops than anything else. And there's an interesting video, if you go on the Black Lives Matter Houston site, where some type of a news organization, and I forgot the name of it, actually was doing, you could call it an interview, and to me it was pretty funny, though the reporter did take a stupid shot at some of the people there, and it was totally uncalled for. Anyway, let me play the clip from the Roland Martin show, and then you can see what I'm talking about.
White lives matter! White lives matter!
Folks, those are White Lives Matter protesters in front of the Houston NAACP headquarters. That took place on Sunday. The small group of demonstrators held Confederate flags and assault rifles to protest the Black Lives Matter movement. One demonstrator stated that they chose the civil rights organization for the protest site to bring attention to the fact that the NAACP is one of the most racist groups in America. Black Lives Matter supporters soon outnumbered the so-called White Lives Matter group in the predominantly black neighborhood. Houston police were called in to keep the peace. So exactly what is this White Lives Matter movement? Joining us via Skype from Houston is a lead activist and organizer for White Lives Matter, Ken Reed. Ken, first and foremost, what's the whole point of carrying the Confederate flags when it was General Lee, who was the leader of the Confederate troops, told those troops to furl that flag and store it in your attics for the rest of your lives? Why are you carrying that from the NAACP when that was exactly what General Lee said to the Confederate troops?
And I do agree 100% that General Lee did make that statement. But in modern times, to people who live in southern parts of the country, all it represents to us is a form of our heritage. Actually,
Ken, let me correct you on that. The fact of the matter is that Confederate flag was furled in those attics for at least 2 generations. Do you know when that Confederate flag was then pulled out? It was pulled out in 1948 when segregationists had their rally in 1948 to oppose civil rights. You do know when they raised that flag on the state capitol of South Carolina, it was opposed to the issue of integration. So the reality is, when you spoke of modern times, the reason that flag reappeared in America was because of the opposition to the civil rights movement. That's called fact, Ken.
Well, that might be true, but I'm talking about for my...
It's not might, it is. But go ahead.
I agree. Okay, let's say that. I agree. That is true, but that is not the reason that myself and other White Lives Matter protesters carry it.
Well, here's the question. Why are you in front of the NAACP to protest Black Lives Matter? Why would you have the courage to go to a Black Lives Matter organization? You also call the NAACP racist. Why?
First of all, I didn't call the NAACP racist. That was another protester named Scott Lacey.
So do you believe the NAACP?
Okay, see, now this is an example of him not letting the guy say his piece. He needs to let the guy complete his thought and then come in there.
NAACP is racist or not?
I definitely believe they're biased. Yes, I definitely believe they're
biased for what?
Meaning that but I'm not against them being biased, because they're the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. They're supposed to put the interests of their people ahead of the interests of others.
No, but again, you call them biased. How?
Because they favor colored people over white people.
Do you know that the majority of the NAACP founders, which came out of the Niagara movement, were white?
I do, absolutely.
Do you realize?
But not anymore.
Do you realize that there are white members of the NAACP?
I do.
Do you realize there are whites? Do you realize there are whites on the board of directors right now in the NAACP?
Most of them are all liberals, yes.
Okay, well, actually, there are many conservatives in the NAACP as well. So the other question is this here. Okay, so you're saying white lives matter. Okay.
Yeah.
But why would you go protest in front of NAACP? Why not go to a white neighborhood? Why not go to another organization? Why would you go to a black neighborhood in front of the NAACP?
If you let me explain, I will. We chose the NAACP because the NAACP, being one of the largest, if not the largest and oldest civil rights organization in the United States, we feel that they have failed in holding Black Lives Matter accountable and condemning the actions that they've done.
What actions?
Maybe not.
What actions?
I'm sorry?
What actions?
Let's, for example, calling for pigs in a blanket, the attacking of white people up in Milwaukee, where a black cop killed a black suspect, a black criminal, and they attacked white people for that.
Okay, just so that you're aware, no, they didn't. That was some propaganda. Even Sheriff David Clark Jr. Did not accuse them of that. And he's obviously the Milwaukee County Sheriff in that area.
Online, you can go online and see hashtag Black Lives Matter and plenty of threats towards white people. We went to Dallas last month and there was Black Lives Matter protesters there. They threatened to kill us. They threw rocks at us. They spit us and they threatened to rape the women that were with us.
Okay, now that, I'm in Dallas, okay, so that's a bunch of crap. That wasn't true. And he needed to, or needs to give us specific documentation as far as that's concerned before he can open his mouth and make that claim. So, next.
For you, Ken, where was your protest in support of the folks at Emmanuel AME in Charleston who were killed by a white supremacist?
I condemn that activity. I do not support what
No, I asked, where was you standing in solidarity with those individuals? Where were you?
I was here in Texas.
Okay. Did you ever publicly come out and stand in protest?
Yeah. I might not have had an organized rally, but I did make it known that I condemn that type. That was a random act of violence. It was senseless, and I do not condone it nor approve of it.
Ken, you just...
Okay, and that's a good thing. So, you know, I don't have a problem with his position on that.
So you just said that NAACP is biased and then they are supportive of African Americans. Are you aware? Do you know what Title IX is?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what Title IX is?
I have a general knowledge of it, so if you want to go into a little bit more depth.
Title IX often is referred to as the law that opened the door for women in sports, when the reality is what it did was it opened the professional schools in America for engineers, doctors, lawyers. Do you realize that white women have benefited more from Title IX than anybody else? Do you also realize that Title IX is a provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which was what the NAACP fought for? So the reality is white women who are at your protest are benefiting from the very law the NAACP fought for. Did you realize that?
So that makes it okay for Black Lives Matter?
No, because you said specifically NAACP is biased. Let me ask you a question.
I'm not saying that.
But Ken, let me ask you a question. Are there any white disabled folks a part of your White Lives Matter?
Absolutely.
Do you realize that the American with Disabilities Act was a result of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which black folks fought for? Are you aware of that?
Yeah, yes.
Are there white women a part of your White Lives Matter group?
Well, of course there is.
Do you realize that it was Arthur Fletcher under President Nixon who created affirmative action, and that white women have benefited from affirmative action more than anybody else? NAACP has fought for that. So the reality is the NAACP, over their history, they've actually fought for policies that have actually benefited you as a white man. Did you realize that?
We might have been. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm not saying that. And we might have gotten some fringe benefits, but their specific goal, yes, meaning this. Their specific goal is for colored people, but yes, white women, disabled people, they all might have benefited from it as well.
Not might, they have. But Ken, let me ask you a question. Ken, if you actually, do you realize that, Ken, did you go to a public school?
As a child, yes.
Yes. Do you realize that public schools were not taxpayer financed in the 1800s. Do you realize that it was freed slaves in Texas who were elected to the Texas legislature, which actually put it in the Constitution for there to be publicly financed education? So do you realize that even going forward, the NAACP has been fighting for that? So the NAACP, fighting for public education, has been fighting for white people like you to get educated.
All of that, what you're saying, is fine and dandy.
But why?
It still does not.
So Ken,
Are we going to have an interview? Am I going to be able to respond back and forth? Are we going to have a dialogue? Or are you just going to run your mouth and talk over me?
Well, actually, I'm not running my mouth. I'm citing a litany of...
Actually, you are running your mouth, and you aren't letting him have an opportunity to respond to what you're saying.
facts that frankly is,
You
to be honest, is...
You're not letting me talk. You asked me on here, but you're not letting me speak.
So Ken, if the NAACP has done all of that, done things that have greatly benefited African Americans and whites, how do you call them biased?
My point of going to the NAACP is because they are not, if they are going to be a civil rights organization and stand up for their people, as it says, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, they should also hold their people and their communities accountable for negative actions and behavior.
I got a question, Ken.
I'm not finished.
Go ahead.
I'm not interrupting you.
Go ahead.
Just yesterday, the president of the NAACP in Houston, Texas, got on the had a news conference after we had our protest, and he praised Black Lives Matter and said they're doing great things. They're doing wonderful things. He did not condemn the looting. They have the right to stand out there.
Who looted?
There's been individual supporters, Black Lives Matter activists, and supporters that have looted.
Ken, got a question for you. When students at the University of Kentucky led riots, tore up cars, and set cars on fire when they lost the NCAA championship, did you hold a rally condemning them?
I called them idiots.
No, but did you release a public statement? Did you hold a news conference? No, Ken. Can I ask Ken? Ken, did you hold a news conference condemning the action of white students because they were mad they lost the basketball game?
No, because that wasn't based on racial hatred.
Oh but so you want
if they were out there screaming, kill colored people or kill the N-word or kill Blackie, I would have been out there protesting against that because I'm not against that type of behavior.
Really?
They were out there being stupid and idiotic. But the Black Lives Matter and those activists are targeting people based on the color of their skin.
Actually, what they're doing is they're actually fighting for rights as well. Let me go to James Douglas, who's president of the Houston NAACP. James, Professor Douglas, you heard Ken. Your thoughts and your reaction to what he had to say.
Well, it's one of the things he said. We held a press conference yesterday, and most of his actions are based on a lack of knowledge. It's kind of hard to deal with people when they don't have all the information. So, as you said earlier, the NAACP has always been a multiracial, multicultural organization. We will continue to fight for the rights of all citizens of the United States, and that's all we're doing. If you look at Black Lives Matter in the movement is not a black movement. There are all races of individuals involved in Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is not about racism. Black Lives Matter is to say black people count too. We are also a part of this country, and we have rights that ought to be protected just like the rights of whites.
So when you hear Ken, when they show up in Confederate flags, which we know is a racist symbol, which we know why it was used, what message do you believe Ken and his supporters are trying to send?
Well, I think Ken and his supporters were trying to get some publicity out of it. They came to the NAACP because they knew that the press would be there if they showed up at the NAACP. It was all about publicity, it wasn't about anything else. If you look at the statements that they profess to support, their support and the white privilege that they talk about is all about protecting the privilege of white people. It's not about being inclusive. The NAACP has always talked about being inclusive.
Ken, final comment.
My final comment is, first of all, I'd like to ask the president of the NAACP there if he will condemn the actions of Black Lives Matter supporters of burning down their cities and attacking white people based on the color of their skin. of and attacking police officers. I want to know if he condones or condemns that type of activity. So Black Lives Matter.
Ken, I actually answer your question. The NAACP.
No, I didn't
Ken, first of all, it's my show. Let's be real clear. This is my show. My name is on it. So you're asking for a comment. That's been done.
Denounce the organization.
Well, first of all, they have denounced the actions that have taken place. So, Ken, is that your final comment?
My final comment is I believe Black Lives Matter has the right to fight for their rights, their lives, their civil liberties here in the United States. I feel that whites have the right to say white lives matter and fight for their rights and their civil liberties and their heritage and culture, just like every people in the United States have the right to do so.
Well, last I checked, when 80% of the men in 80% of the people in the United States Senate are white men. We have Fortune 500 companies, and we have more than 90%. More than 90% of the folks sit on boards of directors are white men. When you also look at the fact that you have right now no African Americans in the country who are governors of states, I would surmise to say white folks have had it pretty good in America. Since the first Africans arrived in 1619. Ken, y'all had it pretty good. Ken Reed, we appreciate it. Ken, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much. James Douglas, we appreciate it. Thank you so very much as well. Gonna go into a break right now.
All right. Final comment. I don't think Ken is really that bad of a guy. I think that if he were better informed, he would have picked a better spot, okay, than to protest in front of the NAACP Houston office located in a black community. Now, I took a look, and there are videos, and I encourage you to go to the Facebook page for Black Lives Matter Houston. There were various videos shot there regarding this particular event, and some of them, in my opinion, were a little tragic, or let's say funny. Some of them basically were a bit ignorant, but you need to go and take a look anyway. When these people had their protest there, within about an hour and a half, they were surrounded by a ton of black people. And thank God for the Houston Police Department, because there was a significant police presence to make sure that things didn't get out of hand, and fortunately they did not. Bad idea, wrong target.